Our next guest is unpacking what he calls the, quote, tug of war inside Gen Z's heads surrounding the conflict in Iran. Let's bring in the director of polling at the Institute of Politics at Harvard University, MS Now contributor John Della Volpe. His new piece on Substack is titled Permission to Oppose the War.
John, the most surprising thing about this poll is that, and the polling in general is, I would have expected younger voters to be overwhelmingly against the war. That's just not the case. I think, like most of us, and we just heard in David Remnick, who said there is no doubt that Iran poses a threat to the region. That what we've been saying all along, there's no doubt it's positive that their military has been degraded. But on the other hand, and there's a long list, it seems that younger Americans are feeling the same way. They're ambivalent right now about this war and trying to figure out whether they support it or not. Go into the details.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And just for the record, this is kind of outside of my Harvard polling work. We'll be back with a 52nd edition of that in a few weeks. But what this is about is that I've been conducting, my digital twin, have been conducting in-depth conversations every night since the war began. Hundreds of conversations, thousands of interviews. And what we found, Joe, was among those members of Gen Z with strong opinions, you guys are right. It's 3, almost 4 to 1 oppose the war. But what I found surprising, like you, is that we have just as many, slightly more, who are kind of in the somewhat opposed, somewhat support. I don't have enough information right now to give you a strong opinion. The reason, I think, is that it hasn't quite been personalized yet. So when we talk about these tensions, is they're holding, as you often talk about, two ideas at the same time. They know Iran is dangerous. They know they've killed tens of thousands of people, but they also think our response is wrong, especially when young children are killed in Iran. There's a tension of they support the troops, of course, but they fear for their lives. There's a tension of maybe I don't have all the information. I'm not following this as closely as perhaps I could or I should. So they're struggling with this. And again, I think kind of in their hearts, they kind of oppose the escalation of this, but they're looking for information to personalize it more, to feel more confident in those views.
John, one of these tensions that really jumps out is I can't afford to care. It's exhaustion, as you write here, which is my life is so expensive. I've got so much going on at home. I can't afford to care what's going on. Now, part of the tension there is the war is making their lives much more expensive. Gas is $4 a gallon. It's going to start showing up in food and in other places as well. So maybe that's where that tension unlocks.
Really, I think for the first time in like the decades that I've been polling, we actually spoke to a young woman living in her car. She said because of the war, she cannot afford to maintain her rent. And she was actually doing our interview to earn a little money to put gas in the car that she lives in. Other people who participated in these interviews talked about riding their bike to work because they can't afford gas. And they understand the kind of the connection. I think what they're asking for is for kind of the rest of us to help them kind of connect the dots. Again, they're living this experience. They know where it's headed, but they're conflicted because they don't think the Iranian regime obviously is doing the right thing kind of for their people in the region, et cetera. So it's just complicated for them.
Hey, John, I'm curious about tension number 5. I'm fine with the goal, just not the escalation. Are they familiar with the way wars work?
Well, they are, and I think that's why they're concerned, right? They understand the goal, okay? The original goal, I guess. I mean, who really does understand the goal, right? As we've been talking about, this morning, it seems to be a moving target. They're okay, I think, right, with removing the regime, but they are deeply concerned, Mike, about boots on the ground. Regardless of where people are living, whether it's St. Louis or Charlotte or New York, people are concerned about their own piece of the homeland being at risk, right? Through terrorism, through cyber terrorism, through bombs, et cetera. So that's what they're kind of, again, concerned about. But on the other hand, they see that it's an unjust regime, and they're again, this is one of the tensions they're trying to work through. These are young people, and I give them credit actually for being honest in terms of, I can't tell you until I help you, until I think about it a little bit more and have more conversations. And they want to have more conversations, and they want to have conversations, Mike, without being judged or shamed for asking important questions.
So that phrase that you just used, boots on the ground, are they familiar with the fact that boots on the ground actually means human beings, young men, young women, their age, serving the United States of America militarily? Are they familiar with that?
Yes, we spoke to several members of the military community whose partners, spouses, brothers who are serving, and again, that is one of the tensions. They want to obviously support the troops, the men and women protecting our country. At the same time, they don't want to see harm. It's just another one of the tensions. Again, I think, as I said, the opposition is 3 to 4 to 1 against among the people who have had an opportunity to walk through these arguments. But the message here is that younger people want to be heard. They want to be listened. They want to engage in these conversations. And what we need to do, I think, is to give them that space and talk about, as you just did, the very personal cost to the men and women who are, quote, the boots on the ground, who are at risk among the many other aspects of this war.
John Della Volpe, thank you so much. The new piece is online right now.